Okay, good morning. Yeah, so I live in New England. Um, and one of the topics today was the fact that there is a huge housing crisis in this state. Um, Particularly even the northern parts, but I think it's pretty rampant all over. Um, One of the things that comes to mind is that I think we're entering into this space in our country where multi generational homes are going to be kind of the go to. Unfortunately, for all the worst reasons, as big corporations buy up housing developments and things like that. And there's always this ongoing joke in the polyamory community where, who can afford to be monogamous right now? All jokes aside, though, it is more feasible for four adults to enter into the housing market. And so while we watch, I think in this area alone, I think the statistics were that housing prices were going to raise by something like 29% by next year. And already they're at a spot where the amount of income that people make in this area is already not enough for the rent and the mortgages options that are available to us. And so in a small town community like the place that I live in, what we're seeing is this crazy epidemic of homelessness. Now, that has always been the case in the United States, where homelessness has been at an all time high for something that's considered a first world country. But this is a really, really, really big problem in the smaller communities. What we're seeing is it there's this movement of people from bigger cities to rural areas. So there's a little bit of gentrification. If you're not familiar with that term, it just basically means that somebody comes in, they buy up a cheap property, then they post it for more, and that drives the cost up and makes it unaffordable for people who live in the area who actually make an income that would not be able to match that market price. The other contributing factors are the cost of construction has gone up over the years because of inflation, specifically the last 2 years, significantly. The cost of heating has almost doubled for specifically me, our family. I know we could fill our kerosene tank for about $300. Now costs us almost 700. So heating has gone up. Inflation's a big issue. But the housing market itself is that labor and construction and taxes have gone up. That's the 29% that I'm talking about. So when we see these families in crisis, what's happening a lot of times is people are selling to others, and then that tenant gets evicted, and kind of facing this tumultuous time where that family is now displaced. And when they go to seek a new area to live in, they now go from paying what was once an affordable price to now the new prices. And so, because it jumped so quickly in the last 2 years, a lot of these families are unable to get into places. It's really tragic to watch it happen into my community. And while I luckily am not yet impacted by that, it's worth talking about. I'm curious if you're watching this from another state, or if you're watching this from a city or a different sort of area than I'm in. I'm curious, is it like that where you are? I want to open this conversation because I don't see it being really. I mean, yeah, we hear about the housing crisis or the housing market going up on big media outlets, but we don't really hear how it's personally impacting people within those communities, especially small communities. So I'm curious. I'm curious if, wherever you're from, give us a general area, and then I'd love to hear from others about what is your experience with this, because this just feels like I can remember vividly while I was a teen during this time. Teen? Was I a teen? I was a young adult. During the 2009 recession. Um, yeah, that was a big one. This just feels like it's going to be significantly bigger. And of course, with the talk of war on the horizon, potentially, we're looking at maybe even something bigger. I'm just curious. Anybody watching this from other states, please comment and let me know what your experience with with the housing crisis, and what does it look like in your area? Because I'm in a small tucked away town in northern New England, and while this community tends to do okay with like inflation and things like that, it still hurts, still impacts people. But they're resilient. I'm in a farming area. The community tends to band together. The housing crisis has hit us really, really hard. Um, yeah. So comment, and I'd like to unpack some of those comments going forward. Um, and how this ties into sort of like what I've been doing with my podcast. I know I wasn't really going to jump into politics or like, economy, but this is kind of what's hitting home right now. And so that joke of like, oh, maybe we need to like pair up with some of our platonic loves and like go in together on a piece of land. Finally, like we need to just maybe do it, because I was thinking, well, maybe we wait a little bit, it'll even out, but I don't foresee it evening out anytime soon. What are your thoughts?